Welcome, friends, to another Friday Forensics with Ed Wallace and DutyRon. Guys and girls, we're retired New York City detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace, this guy. When we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we're going to bring to you a great show, Forensic Friday. We're going to dive into Asa Ellerup, the DNA, the matches, the Gilgo Four. What does this mean to the case? Is Asa Ellerup going to be arrested? Is the district attorney's office being tight-lipped mean that they are working the case behind the scenes and we don't know what's going on? We're going to get into it all. But before we do that, Ed and I would like to say thank you to the Patreon supporters, the channel members, the folks who buy us cups of coffee, the moderators, the replay viewers, all of the folks who leave positive comments in the live chat and also down below in the comment section, because you guys are what makes this a great place. Isn't that so, Ed?
Amen.
Yeah, amen to that. We got a lot to dive into and a lot to cover here tonight. But first, before we get into it, I want to say welcome to New York City, Smitty Schmacks. Smitty is in New York City. We got her the grand tour of 9/11, the World Trade Center Museum at Ground Zero. And Timmy Acosta, I tip my cap to you. Thank you for taking care of Smitty and her friends who came here to New York. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Did Timmy a polygrapher?
Yeah, told me to put this up when I said that. So
that's it. In God we trust. All others we polygraph.
Timmy Acosta. He's the man, the myth, the legend. Ed, let's dive into it because everyone's chomping at the bit. Is Asa Ellerup in trouble here? Does she have some splaining to do, Ed?
Well, I got to tell you, I am very disappointed in the way these press releases and these leaks or police sources, again, leaked this information because there was no context to it. Are we talking about new DNA that was found, or are we talking about the hairs that were found and now the buccal swab yielded its genetic profile and they were able to definitively match the genetic profile from the buccal swab they took of her to the hairs that were found on 3 of the victims? What are we talking here? And they left it so vague, it set the true crime genre world on fire. And everybody's talking about it. It's all over the news, and they're speculating, and they're moving on with this, and bringing in all kinds of guests and sensationalizing it. Yeah. We have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, we're hearing these shocking new revelations and shocking new details. Hey, if they have information that leads to all roads lead back to Asa Ellerup, if that is in fact the case, I'm all for it. Lock her up, bring her in.
Yeah, but you follow your leads and you let the chips fall where they may.
Correct. But the thing of it is that, the media, they have a job to do. They have stories to get out. And like you said, these police, they don't even say police. They just say sources. And we're going to hear it in these articles. We're going to hear from attorney John Ray tonight. We're going to also hear from some forensic experts like Joseph Scott Morgan from Jacksonville State University. He's always on all of the he has his own podcast, Body Bags, but he's all on News Nation and on Court TV. So we'll take a listen. But I know that you guys have a lot of questions. You have a lot of questions as it pertains to this transfer the cards exchange principle, the transfer of evidence. And Ed, I'll let you take over because I went a little too far.
No, that's fine. Hey, you make me proud. You make me so proud, Ron. You're learning forensics, Ron. Anyhow. Yes, I see people write the cards exchange principle in the chat, and I have to say this over and over again. There are no exceptions to the cards exchange principle. Do I need to say it again? There are no exceptions. Okay, when 2 or 3 items come in contact together, emerge together, and then separate, there's going to be an exchange of trace materials. Now, hair and fibers are trace transfer evidence. So that doesn't mean that Asa, depending on who you're talking to, was present at the time her hairs got on these victims in the tape or the burlap. Okay, anybody that has a pet knows this. Very simply, your pet jumps into your car or on your sofa and then leaves their fur or hair, and then you sit down on that same area, and then you get up, and now you have your pet's hair on you.
Yeah.
But it is circumstantial evidence that her husband could be involved in this, and that he took these people back to their house or in his vehicle or any place that his wife could have left her hair or could have been on him and transferred it to these victims. Now, if we're talking about hair, other types of DNA on other parts of these victims' bodies, okay, are we talking, single source DNA profile left on the victim's skin? Well, that could be huge. Okay. Are we talking single source DNA from her left on victim's clothing? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now there's, several possibilities how these types of DNA could possibly get there. Okay. And one of them could be a transfer method that was used, something she touched, then maybe her husband picked up with gloves and then used on the victim like a towel or something to wipe them down or whatever the case may be, and then transferred the DNA that way. I mean, that could be, or the other, she has to explain, did she touch them?
Right.
Was she there? Was she present? Was she swinging with these women with her husband before their demise?
And that's the thing too, is the news says DNA found on the victims matches to Asa Ellerup, but when the news reports it, they don't say what the DNA is. Now, I'm not saying that this is what it is. If under one of the victims' fingernails was Asa's skin from a scratch or a fight,
whoa, that's huge.
That's huge. But
then she has some splaining to do.
Big time splaining, but we don't know. And again, let me be clear. That was just me saying if. Right? If that was the case, that would be bombshell, but you still can't go and lock her up. You need to build a case to prove how that happened, when it happened. And don't forget, these victims were on Ocean Parkway, along that roadway for an extended period of time. So there were skeletal remains recovered in almost all of these victims, wrapped in that burlap. Let's take a listen, Ed. I know you're already working the chat, and I love that. But let's take a listen to this, and we'll be right back. Hold your questions for the middle to the end of the show, because Ed and I are going to be taking Q&A. We're going to take live call-ins tonight. That's the exciting part about this. I know some of you guys are kind of camera shy, but we're going to take, hopefully one brave soul calls in, and you can field your questions directly as it pertains to this, to the great Ed Wallace or myself. So let's let this roll.
To Long Island at another sensational murder case. As the estranged wife of the accused Gilgo Beach serial killer steals the spotlight once again from her locked up husband. New reports reveal a DNA sample taken from Asa Ellerup matches her to genetic material found on the remains of Rex Heuermann's alleged victims. Now, the match could add to the incriminating evidence against Heuermann. He's charged so far in the deaths of 3 women, their bodies found more than a decade ago. This all comes as Ellerup makes news with another questionable relationship, this one with the Peacock Network, which signed her to a 7-figure documentary deal to tell her story as the Heuermann trial unfolds. To News Nation's Laura Engel from Long Island tonight with more on this new report. Laura?
Hi, Connell. If verified, this could bring an even stronger link to Rex Heuermann and his wife, to the victims in this case. It is important to note that these reports have not been verified by law enforcement, but still, this could be a major development similar to the one we saw when investigators were able to link DNA off of a pizza box linked to Rex Heuermann that they say tied him to this case. Newsday and ABC News reporting that a cheek swab sample taken from Asa Ellerup, the wife of Gilgo Beach suspect Rex Heuermann, matches DNA material found on the remains of some of Heuermann's alleged victims. The sample was taken from Ellerup in July when her husband.
Now, I just want to just stop it there for a second, Ed, if you don't mind. They say samples. How did she word that? DNA material matches.
We'll play it back, Ron. Play it back.
I'm going to go back.
Of Heuermann's alleged victims. Suspect Rex Heuermann matches DNA material. Newsday and ABC News reporting that a cheek swab sample taken from Asa Ellerup, the wife of Gilgo Beach suspect Rex Heuermann, matches DNA material found on the remains of some of Heuermann's alleged victims. The sample was taken.
So, can you explain? I mean, I know that it's hard to explain this, but this is what leads people to say, "Oh, it's not just the hair. This could be something else." But because of the vague reporting here, it leaves everybody to go like this.
They said DNA material. So is it the hair? Is it saliva with amylase? Did she kiss these people, or is it skin cells? Right? Is it blood? What are we talking here? And there's no specificity.
Right. All right, I'm going to let the rest of this play, and I wanted to stop it there because I know a lot of people, a lot of our CSI folks who like try to follow the evidence and really try to pay attention to the evidence. It's got them confused because it's like, wait a minute, more material? Is this not just the hairs, or what are we talking about here? And we don't know.
Taken from Ellerup in July when her husband was arrested for the murder of 3 victims. Their bodies found dumped on Gilgo Beach in 2010. Despite the reports, Ellerup's attorney said this to News Nation. There is nothing new in the reports today. This is consistent with what the prosecution stated at Rex Heuermann's arraignment. We have not seen or received any further DNA reports. The prosecution has been consistent since day one that Asa Ellerup is not a suspect and was not in the jurisdiction when these homicides were committed. There have been previous reports that genetic material linked to hair found in burlap wrapped around some of the victims matched Ellerup's DNA, and now there appears to be a possible stronger link. Also important to note, prosecutors have not charged Asa Ellerup.
Ron, back that up. Back that up.
Say she was out of it. There have been previous reports that genetic material linked to hair found in burlap wrapped around some of the victims matched Ellerup's DNA, and now there appears to be a possible stronger link.
Is that what?
So now they said they were specific, said DNA material of the hair was already matched, and now they're suggesting that this is something else.
Yeah, and this is where the confusion comes in, and this is where the misinformation comes in, and this is where the speculation comes in, and none of us have access to the case file. This is all leaked information somehow to the press, and they're not shy about saying it's leaked information because they say it comes from sources. So who are the sources? The only sources that this could come from is detectives that are involved in this case.
And why would they leak it? Why would they leak it unless they're disgruntled maybe or with the investigation or unhappy about the direction some is going?
Some people just don't know how to zip their mouths, and that includes detectives because they're just human beings just like all of us. And we saw it. I saw it in warrants. I saw it when I worked in the parole task force. We would do search warrants, and we would be doing warrants on really sensitive locations where we do the no knocks early in the morning, and somehow it would get out. And so I don't know how it would happen, but it would get out. Let's listen to the rest of this. It's almost done. Yeah, look, Kristen says some might do it for clout. I don't know what kind of clout. That is embarrassing, to say the least. Any law enforcement official, whether it's on the DA side or on the police side, leaks out this stuff, you're like a criminal yourself. That's like perpetrator-like. This is what bad people do, and I don't like it one bit. I talk strongly about this. So do you, Ed. People that do this should get punished, whether that means getting arrested or losing your job. This is not a game. You're talking about people who lost their lives in a brutal fashion, bodies cut up, pieces of body parts showing up on the shoreline. This is not good.
Also important to note, prosecutors have not charged Asa Ellerup with any crimes and say she was out of town at the time of the murders. Forensic experts say if Ellerup's DNA indeed matches genetic material found on some of the victims, it would raise more questions than answers.
What's fascinating to me is that it was still there after this period of time where it has been exposed out in the elements, and they were still able to recover it. This is very fragile evidence. Wind can come up and blow hairs away. From my perspective, I'd like to know if there was more than one hair, if you had multiple hairs, or if you had multiple other sources of DNA that might be found there.
What do you think of that, Ed?
Yeah, and where it was found. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, he's 100% right, because there were several little changes and high and low tides, and being in that harsh environment, you know, where was this material and how was it protected? Is something internally, like did they find this like doing a sex kit? You know, trigger alert to get, you know, to get anybody graphic, but did they find it? Was it also from maybe a swab of her mouth, inside of her mouth? What did they find?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the big question. That's the $1 million question. Katerina, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you becoming a member and subscribing. And if you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, where you can get answers to lots of things, not just only forensics. We bring on lots of different experts over the course of our time, because we know Ed has a very expansive Rolodex. It's a mile long. But let's wrap this up, because this is almost done, and then we'll go to the next.
Rex Heuermann was arrested and charged with the murder for 3 of the 4 victims of the Gilgo Four. Their remains were discovered along a remote stretch of Ocean Parkway on Long Island in 2010. A grand jury is still investigating him as way on Long Island.
I just want to show this again for some of the folks who might not be following this case so closely. This is a good map with dates and times. Well, not times, but dates, and it gives you an idea of where all these remains are recovered along Ocean Parkway here. And they say it's the Gilgo Beach victims, but some of them are outside of that Gilgo Beach area. But it's all along Ocean Parkway at different locations. This was a dumping ground of we know Rex Heuermann, because he is, again, he's charged with 3 out of the 4, the Gilgo Four. And you hear District Attorney Ray Tierney talk about this grand jury is not investigating anything else other than those 4 victims. But that doesn't mean that there could be a separate investigation that's working behind the scenes, in addition to this Gilgo task force, within this task force, but working on other remains that were recovered here. And that's why I wanted to show this. It's not just, Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Costello. You have, the Asian male, you have Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, the toddler. So there's more. There's more to this investigation. Let me just let the rest of this play, and then we'll come back in.
2010. A grand jury is still investigating him as a prime suspect in the 4th case, and is said to be close to a conclusion that could come before Christmas. And we reached out to the Suffolk County District Attorney for comment on this case. They gave us none, saying they could not comment on it. And Rex Heuermann will be back in court on February 6th.
And I don't anticipate them ever getting any comments from the Suffolk County District Attorney. Your thoughts on that, Ed?
Well, yeah, apparently he was asked, and he didn't say anything about it. Okay.
He was also very vocal about not answering questions. He's not talking about this case or trying this case. Those are his exact words. We don't try the case in the media. And that was right after John Ray and Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison did that interview, the news conference.
Again, if for this DNA to have survived this long in this harsh environments, it had to be protected in some fashion. Okay, it could have been stuff underneath the skin, underneath the nails of the victims, or some sheltered area. Geez, Louise, if this is something other than the hairs we already know about.
I'd like to expand on what you're saying here, Ed. Could this burlap, because we know that these victims, the Gilgo Four, were all wrapped in that burlap, the duck hunter's burlap, or whatever, the camouflage burlap.
Duck hide, yeah.
Right. Does this act, and I know we did a whole segment and a whole live stream on this. But does this aid in preservation of evidence, having human remains wrapped? And again, if anybody's sensitive to this type of conversation, we're going to talk a little bit about, some sensitive stuff here. But Ed, from your experience, I mean, you worked in the medical examiner's office in the DNA lab. Does this help aid in a case and preservation of this type of evidence, as Joseph Scott Morgan said there?
Well, it's a weave, and it's not a tight weave; it's open. And depending on how much of this material was used and how it was wrapped, maybe it was wrapped around these victims multiple times. Plus, again, there's duct tape, there's a belt, there's other binds that were potentially used. It could protect things underneath it on the top of the skin.
Yeah. So it could very well have aided in
right. And if the hands were like side to the side and they're wrapped in there, it could have protected what might be underneath the nails.
Yeah. Some folks in the chat are saying, I don't know what burlap is. Well, we have a live stream, and I'll link it in the description, where our good friend, retired Irish detective, an NYPD detective, he actually showed us a piece of it on the screen. So I'll link that video down below, and you could go check that out. But burlap is, as Ed just described, something that hunters use, and landscape companies, they wrap trees in burlap. There's a lot of different things that it's used for. What do you see, Ed? Anything interesting?
Well, Kitty Coo says, Ed, how long will fingernails last with evidence after death? Fingernails don't decompose, because they're mostly keratin, and they last a long time with evidence under the skin. If it's protected, as in this case, like if it's wrapped in burlap or on the sides of the body and covered like that, it could last a long time. While the skin may start to decomp and shrink, but if that material is truly embedded underneath the skin, underneath the nails, rather, it could last quite some time.
Thank you for answering that. Go ahead. What was
no, I'm saying, in fact, there have been like mummies and there was the Iceman frozen in the Alps, and then fingernail scrapings were taken from these individuals and things were found underneath them.
Many years in being preserved. Fingernails do grow after death. I think I asked Barbara Butcher that. Is that true?
No, that's not true. The skin shrinks. The fingernails do not grow.
But they stay preserved, though, right?
They stay preserved. Yeah.
I did ask her that. I guess she must have said no.
No, she said it. She said it right.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a listen. Now, this is also controversial in itself. When John Ray, the attorney for some, well, I don't even want to say two of the victims, but for Shannon Gilbert, John Ray, there's been some conversation that he's no longer representing his second victim. I don't even want to mention her name because it gets people in a tizzy. But Shannon Gilbert, John Ray has been at this 13 years, and some people say, he's going over the top. You heard Asa Ellerup's attorney say that he's in it to try to recoup some of his money. I don't know that he is in it to try to recoup any of his money. I think he's in it to really fight for the rights of these victims' families, to get justice for their family member who was brutally slain. So I want everyone to listen to what John Ray had to say, and this is a little bit lengthy, but he's asked about this new DNA evidence, and he says some things here. Now, we know, Ed, and correct me if I'm wrong, we know that he has an in with the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison. They work together. Rodney Harrison said on that news conference that from day one, he was working together with John Ray to get information. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing at all wrong with that, because John Ray is getting people that we would get and sign up as confidential informants. So John Ray was acting as a liaison, as the go-between between the police department, an attorney, and people who were afraid to talk to the police department. So the police were using John Ray to get them valuable information. And there came those two witnesses that signed sworn affidavits. So let's take a listen to what John Ray had to say here. This was today.
Reports have said that the DNA from her cheek swab matched the hairs found on, the burlap wrapping the victim. So From that, it would sound like we already knew some of this information. Is that the case? And if so, why would it then be surprising at all?
It may be the case that the present information is really originally the information regarding Ellerup's hair. I'm told that the hair is found on all three victims that were for which the charges of murder.
So I want to just say, because he's echoing, he doesn't have a mic on. It seems like he's, somewhere where he normally wouldn't be, because his audio is kind of echoey. But he said that Asa Ellerup's hair was found on all three victims. Now, I know he has a direct in straight to the Suffolk County Police Commissioner. So I would have to bet that he's not talking out of his ass here. He's talking about information that he has and that he knows of, and that he has information that's potentially valid here. So let's listen to it again. It's kind of hard to hear it, but I'm going to play it back.
Ellerup's hair. Originally, the present information is really originally the information regarding Ellerup's hair. I'm told that the hair is found on all three victims that were for which the charges of murder were made, and that there was a fourth hair found on the belt that is so controversial in this case. It seems highly unlikely that such a development as that could ever have exonerated Ellerup whatsoever. And when you really look at what the district attorney originally said, at that time, he was talking at the very beginning of the investigation about her, if you read the papers, her cell phone being in various places. That's not necessarily her. And even if it were her who had the cell phone, nobody knows when these girls were actually killed. They know when they disappeared, approximately, not when they were killed, nor when their bodies were moved, which could have been at a different time. So in other words, she should still be in the ring of suspects. And maybe the district attorney is taking now a second look and perhaps at to the grand jury, especially given Ellerup's sociopathic behavior that doesn't match that of an innocent person whatsoever, especially now that she is selling herself like a ghoul eating on the dead to get money for herself.
Yeah.
It's a stunning development. And the DA cannot look at that without a glance of great.
If I heard right, he called her a ghoul.
You did.
These are pretty strong messages he's sending out here. He's telling the audience here on News Nation that Asa Ellerup is earning money on the backs of murdered people. And that's the truth. I am disgusted by it. These are my personal opinions. I think it's vile. I think that gaining and profiting off of other people's losses, and these are not just regular losses. Let's bring us back on. These are not just regular losses. These are women who are potentially tortured, raped, and then murdered by this savage, right? And we don't know if she had anything to do with it. And that's what compounds this and makes it so much worse, because now on the back end of it, some 13 or more years later, she wants to earn millions of dollars. It started with the GoFundMe from the Happy Face Killer's daughter, Melissa. And then she wasn't happy with 60,000, and now it's millions that she's going to potentially make. And she signed a deal, not just with the Peacock Network, she signed a deal with 50 Cent.
Yeah, I can't believe that. The rapper 50 Cent and his production company. So it's two separate deals.
So we're talking multi-million dollars just alone in those two separate deals. God only knows that guy's got a freaking ton of money to throw around. And she signed with him as well. And then when her attorney, Bob Macedonia, was asked about it, he had the audacity to say, "Oh, I don't know anything about this." And Banfield, who we aren't always fans of, she did good and said, "Oh, excuse me, wouldn't she consult with you? Aren't you her attorney?" And she made him look like a fool.
Well, what is he doing to get that 400,000? Because he's getting paid 400,000 as the lawyer, so he has to be representing her in this contract.
Let us know what you think in the comments section about Asa Ellerup signing multiple deals on the back of these dead victims, these four: Melissa Bartholomew, Megan Waterman, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, and Amber Costello, and maybe more. Let us know what you think. And if you think it's disgusting, hit a 1 in the chat. If you think it's vile, hit that 1 in the chat. Let us know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. Let's let the rest of this finish.
Match that of an innocent person whatsoever, especially now that she is selling herself like a ghoul, eating on the dead to get money for herself.
Yeah.
It's a stunning development, and the DA cannot look at that without a glance of great skepticism, and perhaps we'll get somewhere now finally with what this woman is all about.
Well, on that point,
witnesses who say she's involved.
On that point, which is separate from whether or not she was involved in the 7-figure Netflix deal that you're alluding to there, you represent, some victims. Can only imagine how they feel about that. What have they told you about that, if anything?
The several victims I've talked to who are, we have a victim who's still alive, and we haven't disclosed her yet. And we have other family members of victims.
Hold on a second. What did he just say there? We have a victim who is still alive that was a victim of who? Is he saying?
Play it back. Let's go to the videotape.
Yeah, let's go to the videotape. Is John Ray saying that there is a victim of both Asa Ellerup and Rex Heuermann, or Rex Heuermann or Asa Ellerup singularly? I missed this. I missed this one. Did you catch that?
Play it. I think I know who he's talking about.
Let me go back.
Your Netflix deal that you're alluding to there, you represent, some victims. Can only imagine how they feel about that. What have they told you about that, if anything?
The several victims I've talked to who are, we have a victim who's still alive, and we haven't disclosed her yet. And we have other family members of victims who've spoken to me and told me what this woman has done is unspeakable.
You better buckle up, because this guy has so much more to release. I mean, that's going to be additional bombshell information coming forward. And it sounds like he's not shying away from giving a preview of it right now. Allison BD, thank you for always gifting those memberships. She gifted out 5, and welcome to the new members. Heather, whatever, thank you for becoming a bronze member. Ed, wowzer.
Yeah, you got that right. Wowzer. He just broke something we hadn't heard before. He's saying that there is a live victim.
A live victim. And he didn't say who.
No, but and apparently the task force doesn't know about it, or because he hasn't brought her forward yet. Or we don't know it's a her. He just said a victim. And
does he have the cooperation of District Attorney Ray Tierney? I have to say, probably not. Ray Tierney is probably not opening his arms to John Ray.
Yeah, given the statements he's made in the past about John Ray, I don't think so.
But the Suffolk County Police Commissioner, Rodney Harrison, is still in office, from what I understand. I don't think he's done yet, but it's going to be shortly, I think in the second week of December. So he's still on the clock, and he's still there. So I'm sure that he's feeding him this information. And Rodney Harrison, if I know him, which I do, he's going to get that in the case file and get it documented, because once it's documented, it's not going to be able to be removed from that case file. So I'm hoping Rodney Harrison is doing a lot of work on this and getting this stuff documented. Let's listen to the rest of this, Ed, and then we'll come back, because we got a lot of questions to take.
And she's never once reached out in any. I've talked to who are, we have a victim who's still alive, and we haven't disclosed her yet. And
it's a her.
Family members of.
We haven't disclosed her yet.
Yeah. Okay.
And it can't be that Nikki Brass girl, the blonde who went out and gave interviews all over the place, because she's out there already.
Yeah, saying
we haven't exposed her. So I saw a couple of people mention her name in the chat. It can't be her, because she's been on the news circuit, and that's not. This is going to be a whole new person and a whole new, set of information and such.
victims who've spoken to me and told me what this woman has done is unspeakable. And she's never once reached out in any sympathy for them whatsoever. This is a person who is just like her husband. She also participated in the sexual trysts of her husband in her house. We have witnesses to that effect. This girl needs to be looked at very, very carefully. She is, like I said, feasting on the deaths of these women.
But the prosecutors were fairly quick, right, to not charge her, to eliminate her as someone who would be charged with wrongdoing, saying, you know, she wasn't even there. She wasn't in the jurisdiction at the time of the murders. But you clearly think that she had something to do with it, even with all of that said.
She seems to have everything to do with everything that's happened in that house so far. What's happened in that house is not clear. We don't know where the murders took place.
That's right.
There could be other locations where they took place, but how could this woman's hair and nobody else's hair, such as, for example, her children, such as her dog, her cats, not appear, and yet 3 of her hairs appear on 3 of the.
That's a freaking good point, Ed. I want to talk about this. He brings up something very good. Why was there no other commingled hair? Why was there no other exchange from the dog? Why didn't they say there was? I'm sure this dog was not alive maybe 13 years ago. Maybe he was. I don't know. But if they had any pets in the house or anybody else that came into that house, I come and visit that house. Of course, my hair is not going to. Well, 13 years ago, I might have had some hair. But if I'm saying, so good point, Ed. Can you expand on that?
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of speculations here. You know, the kids' hair are not found on these victims. Okay, so they obviously the kids utilize the furniture in the house that maybe the victims might have been on. In fact, where were the kids in such a small house when they were doing all this swinging activity?
Yeah, they were younger. They were much younger. I think one of them wasn't born, but Asa's son is in his 30s. So, and then the daughter, I think, is in her 20s. So she was young. Yeah. So,
what? And all of a sudden, like after the kids, the swinging stopped.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she the other end of the spectrum here is that she's complicit in this, and maybe she assisted in the disposal of the bodies or prepping the bodies for disposal. We don't know.
Anything's possible. And I like that he said, we don't know where these victims were killed.
Or when. We don't know exactly when or where and when they were disposed. We don't know any of that.
Right. But there's these possibilities that Rex used his home, that dungeon, that house. And the way we saw the garage set up, Ed, I know you were into this whole architectural stuff. That is a perfect setup to back up that avalanche to the back of that garage and open it up, as we saw Chris Watts put his entire family in his vehicle and leave, right? Go out to the oil fields and dump his kids, right? So Rex Heuermann could have easily backed that car up in that dark, in the front of his dark house with no lights on in the middle of the night, loaded these victims into his back of his avalanche, and that thing closes up. The patch closes up, the top is covered, and he could have drove right out to Ocean Parkway and did the dumps. And John Ray brings it up.
He could, but what about? Don't forget his storage facility.
Yes, Acme storage facility over in Amityville, which is just a short hop from this location. But that is risky, to take a body from your home or take it from somewhere else and put it in a storage facility.
It wouldn't be the first time.
It wouldn't be the first, and it won't be the last.
They called the medical examiner's office out to that scene at the storage facility for some reason.
And let me ask you, Ed, would they call out the medical examiner's office just to check it and do a once over?
Not normally. No, they had to have found something that caused the notification for that response.
Right. Look at our good friend Susan. Thank you, Susan, for this. She says Chris and Letitia, they both backed up their vehicles and took the victims and put them in and loaded them into their respective vehicles and then took them to a dump site. Thank you for that, Susan. Always paying attention and always here. Let's let the rest of this play. It's only like another minute and a half, and then we'll get to the questions.
Even there, she wasn't in the jurisdiction at the time of the murders, but you clearly think that she had something to do with it, even with all of that said.
She seems to have everything to do with everything that's happened in that house so far. What's happened in that house is not clear. We don't know where the murders took place. You know, there could be other locations where they took place, but how could this woman's hair and nobody else's hair, such as, for example, her children, such as her dog, her cats, not appear, and yet 3 of her hairs appear on 3 of the victims.
In DNA that's so old, by the way, didn't you think? I mean, you probably know more about this, but the fact that it's a decade old and you still have this, I mean, you would think it would be very degraded. It wouldn't be high quality, maybe not even identifiable. But it's apparently it is. I mean, what did you make of that? The fact that it was so old and still they have this match reportedly.
Well, it just means that the hair did not degenerate. That's what it would suggest to me.
Yeah.
More than that, I can't say what it would mean. You know, the DA would know, but you know, the DA has been investigating this case steadily since the day that he first announced that she was in apparently another jurisdiction or jurisdictions. Those jurisdictions, by the way, are not far away from the site of the murders. For example, once she was in New Jersey, one can drive pretty quickly from New Jersey to Long Island, no problem. I think the other jurisdiction was a middle state like Virginia, I'm pretty sure. And then the third one was Iceland, where she has her relatives. Okay. So, I mean, these places are not that far away. You know, Iceland is a flight home. Right. We don't know when these things happened. There's no evidence of that. Maybe the DA does by now, but that has to be looked at.
Right.
Ed, I want to also ask you, with this picture on the screen in the backyard here, we did an extensive video on this. It looks like a lot going on there. You see 4 people in Tyvek suits, all bootied up, and hats, and you know, coverings on their heads, the netting.
The proper way to process a crime scene.
The proper way, correct. But we haven't heard anything about what came out of the process of that house. And I want to bring you back on the screen. We're looking at the back of Rex Heuermann's home, and the white boxes, they were taking those boxes out and putting them in a box truck. We're talking about 8 terabytes of evidence on hard drives and zip drives and so forth. What could we be seeing coming out of that house, Ed, that could potentially be matched to these crime scenes, these multiple crime scenes? And what's the chance of Suffolk County crime scene and the forensic lab back in the day doing the right thing and getting what they can get from these individual crime scenes, as we saw those victims, all the different spots along Ocean Parkway? What's the chances of, I mean, I know it's just percentages, but the evidence that's inside that home, we heard nothing about, and we will hear about it, but probably only when this trial kicks off.
Yeah, we don't know what exactly they got, either circumstantial or forensically, out of that house. We didn't hear anything about any trophies. We didn't hear anything about any photographs. We didn't hear anything about any journals.
Bones.
We didn't hear anything about any blood. We didn't hear anything about hairs and fibers or DNA of the genetic material inside of the house. We haven't heard any of that. And so I guess that's a good testament to the integrity of the crime scene investigators in the laboratory with what they did. I knew they had boxcars full of their belongings that they took out of this house, and they had to methodically go through all of that and determine what was, if there was any probative evidence, any value to anything in here towards this case. And then they returned a lot of the stuff as well. And then you had, you know, hundreds of guns, right? You had that, and they're not getting that back.
Guns, yeah.
Yeah, they're not getting that back. That went to Nassau County now. You know, we don't know. You know, there's been some leaks, but nothing on exactly what came out of this house. And, some may take that to believe that nothing of any value came out of the house, but we don't know. We don't know that.
And I want to ask you, this is a user-generated question, Ed, that I'm going to just ask to you. When you see crime scene techs at a home for 12 to 13 days that they were there, and you see the techs, when we were watching male and female technicians towards the end, when they were wrapping up, still going in and out with boxes, right? Is that common in cases? Like I've personally never seen a crime scene held for, or not a crime scene, a search, a home that was a search warrant executed at, held for that long and having items taken out, for that many days. And this is a user-generated question. Is that commonplace to see crime scene technicians for 12, 13 days in and out of the house?
No. And they can only take out of the house what was listed on the warrant. They can't just go, on a fishing expedition, right? So whatever's listed on that warrant. Now, if they come across something while they're there legally under the warrant that wasn't listed on the warrant, well, then you fill out a new application for a new warrant and go back to the judge, explain what you uncovered while you were there legally in plain view,
right.
Or and then request an amended warrant and then have the additional evidence added to it.
Yeah. And we also saw Asa made the complaint through her attorney that they cut the pipes. They cut into their tub, the plumbing. And again, for people here, this is Forensic Friday. What would be the reasoning behind potentially, we don't know for sure, but what would they be looking for in a drain in a bathroom?
I've done this numerous times at crime scenes. You're looking for blood, you're looking for tissue, you're looking for hairs and fibers. But this has been such a long time from the time of these body recoveries and to the going even back further to the time they were reported missing. So the possibility of forensic evidence associated with these victims inside of the tub trap and so forth is highly suspicious or unlikely. But you still got to do it. You still got to do it. You never say never, right? Because there could be some hang up in there or something, and who knows when the last plumbing job was done, or if they ever had a drain cleaning, or if they use chemicals to unstop a drain, or whatever the case may be. But you got to do it. You have to dot the I and cross the T, because if you don't do it, then it's going to become a reasonable doubt question at trial.
Right. And there's no backpedaling. Once you screw it up, there's no oops and do it over again. Mm-hmm. Let's cover some of these chatters, some of the highlighted chat. Angela, member for 9 months, she said, "Hi, Ed and Ron. I'm so happy to be able to catch you live." Well, we're happy that you're here, and we're, again, sending continued condolences to you on the passing of your brother. We send you strength and prayers and positive vibes. Bamason became a YouTube member. Bama has been on and off member, so thank you for rejoining the membership. Thank you to I'm Sent. Thank you for becoming a member. Laura Ann Hoffner, member for 2 months. Thank you for that. Katrina, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Monique says, "At Ed, do pubic hairs transfer as easy as the head hairs?" This is a good question. And thank you for that, Ed.
And the answer is yes. Even more so because the underwear and the friction and the movement of the clothing in that region could pull out more hairs than normally a head hair. There was another question here. Hold on. Curious Kiwi. All right.
Go ahead.
Ed, could there have been more recent victims that haven't been found? Absolutely, but not at the time the task force had them under such close surveillance. Okay. Yes, but prior to that, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, there could be evidence in the traps of those victims that the task force doesn't know about.
Yeah. Thank you, Curious Kiwi. Jeff Litweiler and his wife celebrated her birthday a couple of days ago. Eileen, happy birthday. Belated. Here it comes. Ed's going into CSI mode. We love it. Absolutely. I can't get enough of Ed Wallace in the CSI mode. Heather, whatever, thank you for becoming a member and coming back again. Allison BD gifting 5 memberships. Annie T gifted out 5 memberships. That's so kind, and people really appreciate it. If you appreciate when people send these free gifted memberships, if it gives you excitement, press a 1 on the chat. Let us know that you like it, or just let us know in the comments down below if you like these gifted memberships. It gives you a chance to sample the memberships for 30 days. BS sends in a $10 super sticker. Thank you, BS. We greatly appreciate you. Stephanie is a member for 6 months, and she says, DutyRon and Ed, fantastic show, as always. Well, we appreciate that.
Okay, got another question here. How frequently are hairs from family members of killers found on victims? Is there a percentage? I wouldn't know the percentage, but it does happen. It definitely does happen. And dogs, too, especially dogs. Had a high-profile case. Crime scene had a high-profile case in Staten Island where the dog hairs were pivotal to identifying the suspect.
Right. Let me ask you too, Ed, we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. So we got 10 minutes. How many people in the chat would be interested, or is there anybody in the chat would be interested in coming up with Ed and asking a question on Forensic Friday? It's a chance for you to get on with both Ed and I and ask a question. If you are, let me know in the chat and I'll send the StreamYard link so you can come up and ask the question. And keep it to Asa Ellerup and the evidence. We're not going to answer questions for any other cases other than what we're talking about here. But as I look at the chat and scan it, we're going to play something from News Nation. Now, I'm not sure if this is an attorney or it's somebody in the field, but they're asking questions about the DNA. So let's take a minute and we'll look at that, and we'll be right back with you guys.
Trial attorney and legal analyst Mercedes Coleman has been following this case as well. Mercedes, good morning to you. So let's just clarify this a little bit for the audience. Heuermann's wife submitted to a cheek swab when her husband was arrested back in July. Her attorney is saying the DNA is transferred, obviously transferred. Is he insinuating that the suspect intentionally, or the alleged suspect, intentionally placed that DNA of his wife on these victims?
Great question, Adrian, and good morning. Thanks for having me on your show. It's certainly an implication that could be what occurred. So transfer evidence can happen 2 ways. One, person-to-person contact, casual contact. They live together. Rex Heuermann then has her DNA and then transfers it allegedly to these victims if he is actually convicted of these crimes. That's one way. The other way, and this is something very interesting because Rolling Stone article that just released a few weeks ago said that there was a woman who came forward in this article that she had participated in a sex party at the Heuermann home with a sex worker, Karen Vergata. Karen Vergata is an individual that was found dead. She was a sex worker. This is back in the 90s. So that could be a brewing theory that perhaps, obviously this may be a stretch because the prosecutors have always stepped forward and said that Asa has nothing to do with these crimes. But if there is further development, especially with this story that's just developing about this sex party and the disappearance of this sex worker, Karen Vergata, whose skull was found at Gilgo Beach, no one's been charged with her murder, but this is something certainly that the prosecutors can wrap their arms around, start an investigation about Karen Vergata, discover who, if anyone, was responsible for her death.
One more question. It's interesting that she actually signed up to work on a documentary with Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent.
She said 50.
Surrounding this case, maybe streamed on Peacock. How can that happen? How can she be working on that deal in the midst of this case?
Good job.
It's so mind-boggling, Adrian. It's outrageous. A lot of victims advocates have stepped forward and said how outrageous that she is monetizing the death of these poor young women by going forward and having this docuseries. Well, she can certainly do it. The Son of Sam law that was established many years ago, where if you have been convicted of a crime, you can't monetize it. She's not convicted of a crime. She's not charged in a crime. She can go forward and do this. And it's really unfortunate that she chooses to do something like this. Certainly a victim's advocate is really in their right to be outraged by it.
Absolutely.
Mercedes, we appreciate you joining us. And obviously
that was a good interview. And Mercedes, kudos for you to shout that out. Yeah, Ed, that's the 50. She said, the reporter said 50 cent.
50 cent. Yeah.
I linked the StreamYard's chat link. If you guys want to, if anybody wants to come up and ask Ed or Ed or myself any of these questions that pertains to this, you're welcome to come up. But we'll continue to scan #Ed, #DutyRon. Put your questions in the chat. If you're too chicken to come up and join us. Ed, I thought we would have like a line of people waiting to come up for Forensic Friday. It's a chance to highlight yourself and come on with us and ask the questions. But people are scared. I don't know why.
They're just tired. Anyhow, I've been on several documentaries, and I've never gotten paid to be on the documentaries because there were the cases that I worked on, and we were proud of the results. And so I was just one of many crime scene detectives, or one of many of the detectives in the task force, or whatever the case may be. In fact, I was just telling Ron earlier, the folks, I'm going to be going into studio in a few weeks to do another documentary on a case that I worked on, and we'll let you know more details about that. And then you can, when it airs, we'll let you know about that as well. In addition, I'm going to be doing a training course in New York for Homeland Security, and I'm going to have Ron come out and visit the training, and we're going to videotape aspects of the training, and then we're going to have a show on it.
That's going to be exciting. I can't wait to go up in the new year with Ed and actually go on scene in a classroom with him and record Ed training the troops. And it's going to be fascinating because we're going to take all that video and we're going to put it into a premiere, and we'll upload it and we'll watch it. We'll get our popcorn and sit down, and me and Ed will hang out with you guys in the chat. And it's going to be another learning experience with Ed Wallace. Hey, our one of the guys from our job, Robert Boyce, was on Good Morning America, and he made some good points on this. And I know, Ed, there's that smirk. I know you're not a fan of Robert Boyce. He was on with actually Bill Cannon on Police Off the Cuff, but he said he at times says things that are good. So I want to play this while we're waiting for someone that's not a chicken to come on up and ask us a question. So let's let this rip, and then if nobody comes up, then we'll wrap it up right after this.
A new development in the Gilgo Beach serial killer case. Law enforcement are telling ABC News that a cheek swab sample taken from murder suspect Rex Heuermann's wife matches DNA found on the victims. And Aaron Kotursky has the latest on this story. Aaron, good morning to you.
Good morning, DeMarco. This is an important development for prosecutors as they decide whether to charge the alleged Gilgo Beach serial killer with additional murders.
This morning, law enforcement sources tell ABC News DNA found on the body of at least one.
There it is. Ed, did you hear it? Sources.
Of the women dumped near Gilgo Beach. DNA found. Sources tell ABC. This morning, law enforcement sources tell ABC News DNA found on the body of at least one of the women dumped near Gilgo Beach on Long Island matches DNA from the estranged wife of accused killer Rex Heuermann. Asa Ellerup seen walking into Heuermann's latest court appearance last month, followed by a documentary film crew. Investigators had taken a sample from her cheek the day Heuermann was accused of killing 3 women he had solicited for sex. The sources said that sample matched genetic material found on burlap used to wrap the body of Megan Waterman. Prosecutors believe the DNA match strengthens the case against Heuermann. They have previously cleared Ellerup of any wrongdoing, saying she was out of town when the killings occurred.
This is something different, but it actually adds to the evidence you have. It brings it back to that household in Massapequa Park, and that's what's important. It is unusual, and it doesn't come up every day.
Heuermann has pleaded not guilty to killing 3 women, Waterman, Amber Costello, and Melissa Bartholomew.
Does it, in fact, Ed, bring you back to that house in Massapequa Park?
Well, if the information that they're saying now was that it was found on the burlap, and now it sounds like it's something more than just here. Now, she had access to that burlap living in the house. So if she touched it, if she folded it, if she stored it, if she did any of those things, then you would expect to find her DNA on that material.
Yeah. All right. Listen, we got a brave soul, Robin, New Jersey. Robin, she's like, I'm no chicken. I'm going to come on. And as soon as she gives me the thumbs up, I'll add her in and she can ask whatever question she wants. We got the thumbs up? Okay, cool. Hi, Robin.
Hi, I'm a nervous wreck.
It's okay. Don't be nervous, Jersey girl.
I love your show. Now my granddaughter, who's 12, told me she wants to be CSI investigator.
All right.
Yeah. I had a question amongst all your questions down there. You said fingernails stay. Does toenails stay also?
Yeah, I mean, they last a long time. They don't degrade or decompose like skin does. But eventually what happens, the more the skin decomposes, and if the critters get to it, the fingernails and toenails can tend to fall off in a way and get scattered from the body, or can be found near the body, depends on how the bodies were treated.
Excellent.
Okay.
Where in Jersey, Robin?
Central Jersey.
Okay. Okay.
See,
My whole
she's
family's in police force.
New Jersey Robin. You were smart with your answer. I like that. See,
I spent 2 weeks ago. I spent a week in New Jersey for the New Jersey State Police, bouncing from 3 different cities: Wayne, New Jersey. Then I was in Vineland, and then finally ended in Hamilton, training them up.
Okay, I have two retired state police officers as cousins.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have a big family of police. Either they're police or we're in medical or something. But my other question would be then, if the toenails would stay, let's say they had a fight or she cut herself somehow and she stepped in one of the victim's blood, would there be blood under toenails from her to be DNA that they could have got?
See that again, given the environment they were found in, that's probably not likely.
Okay.
With the water and the tides and everything going on over there. But as I always say never. It's funny how certain things could happen and it just gets stuck in a location that gets protected by the position of the body, and then the next thing you know, you have this body in the morgue, and you find this, and you're like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. All right, Robin, we got to let you
Thank
run.
you very much.
Thank you for being.
Thank you, Jersey girl.
Thank you for not being a
the
chicken.
Membership. I appreciate you very much. Have a good evening, gentlemen.
Bye, Robin. All right, so we have 2 more. I have Tina and Stephanie. I don't know what order they came in. So Tina, Stephanie, don't get mad at me. I'm going to add Stephanie on. What? I don't see her picture, but I saw her before. I saw her video, so she took it off.
Oh, there she is.
All right, good. Stephanie, welcome to the show. What's your question as it pertains to Asa Ellerup, and where you're watching from?
I was wondering if they would be still looking at linking more murders to that family.
They should be.
Yeah.
100%.
I would hope so. Yes.
Yeah. Any unsolved murders that are, have similarities, definitely should be looking at it.
Absolutely.
And not just in New York, anywhere that he had a connection to.
Anywhere he traveled to is, and we saw his Chevy Avalanche towed from his brother's location, Vegas. It was a condo that they own there. That's a difficult one, but they still need to look into it. So yeah, Stephanie, very good question. Investigators have to look at everything. No stone is left unturned.
There was that case in South Carolina, right? That the young lady said their mother was dating this guy, and they could never prove that. But yeah, that definitely. Yeah. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, where are you calling from? You never answered that one.
Oh, Nova Scotia, Canada.
Nice.
Oh, New Scotland. Love it.
Nice.
Have a great night, fellas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right,
there
she goes. Ed's always ready to communicate. All right, Tina Lucio, you ready to go? Thumbs up. Yep, she's ready to go. Hi. Where are you calling from? Where are you calling from? Where are you watching?
I'm in Pennsylvania right now. I'm actually originally from Brooklyn. I do have NYPD, Suffolk County as well, PD and firemen in my family. So
bless them all. God bless them.
Yes.
Amen.
Yes.
What's your question?
So with Asa, I had her number from the beginning. I just got such a bad feeling about her right from the get-go. And now that she's getting all this money and this money grab, and Rex just signed the house over to her so she could sell it for a lot of money, I'm sure people are ready for her to go. If she is indicted or arrested, all this money that she's getting, would she be able to use it, because of that whole Son of Sam? I mean, how would that tie into all that?
Well, the Son of Sam law is for conviction, not arrest or indictment. However, I think somebody can make a good argument. The prosecutors possibly make a good argument to go to a judge and say, "Hey, can we seize these funds or freeze these funds?
Freeze them." Yeah.
Yeah. That she's gotten because of this case, and until after the trial, so she probably wouldn't be able to use that. But that wouldn't stop her from doing the GoFundMe. But GoFundMe tends to shut down those types of funding activities for criminals.
And again, for the folks who are watching, and for you, Tina, we're not we're not lawyers, so we don't have that expertise and knowledge base. So these legal questions, as it pertains to seizing of money, there's a lot of different factors that go into it. And Ed and I, Ed can process a crime scene like no tomorrow. I can hunt down fugitives because I was in the warrant squad. But when it comes to this legal, this legal mumbo jumbo and how that goes, we're not 100% on it. But it's a good question because a lot of people are asking it, and we wish that they could just seize it and take that money away from her. But if she earns this money and signs a contract before she gets collared, locked up,
right?
I'm sure she's free to do whatever she wants with it. She can transfer.
Well, I hope that John Ray goes after that money if this is the case, and the families that are, the victims' families get that cash in, because this is it is disgusting that she's doing this.
We agree. We agree wholeheartedly. We're standing with you on that. I'm repulsed by it. It's gross. It's gross. Tina, I got a whole bunch of people now. The chickens are gone. Nobody's a chicken anymore. I call everybody else. So.
Thank you, Tina.
Thanks for all you do, guys.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you. All right. Take care. All right. There goes Tina. Let's see. Who is next? Amazing Aunt. Yeah. So I spent some time with her today. She came to my office and visited with me.
No
She's
shit.
Hired NYPD sergeant, and we worked together in the fugitive enforcement division. And here she is. Hey, how are you, kiddo?
Hi.
Hi, Sarge.
Nah, stop it, Ed.
Thank you for the empanadas. They were a big hit. I ate some of them after you left, and I appreciate you coming and visit me today at the office.
What do you have, a restaurant now or a food truck?
Something unofficial.
Okay.
But yeah, you see the shirt. I'm actually doing delivery when I hop off here. I was cooking empanadas while I was listening to the show, and I have a delivery in a few minutes. So I figured I'd say a quick hello.
Yes,
and
nice.
I didn't get a chance to clean up, but I wanted to salute the both of you. You're the OGs in the business. I'm a sergeant, but I really salute and respect the time on the job, and everything I learned was from DutyRon, and he really helped me with a great career with the job and also personally. So thank you. Great seeing you today.
I love you. Love you, Amazing Aunt. Can I show the picture of us today?
Yes, please do.
I wanted to get a permission. I'm going full screen with it.
Still no makeup, but go for it.
Okay. So this is me and her today outside my office.
Very nice. Very nice.
I showed the one without the sunglasses. Here's the one with the sunglasses.
I'm invisible there.
Okay.
So I'm supporting my Blue Line jacket there, Ed. I know you appreciate that.
Yeah.
But it was such a treat to see you today. And, we have such a history with our service in the NYPD. She helped to actually bolster my pension a little bit by giving me a whole bunch of trips outside of New York City. So thank you for hooking me up with that, and I appreciate it. What's the question as it pertains to Asa?
So listening to that news report about a victim being alive, I went back with you guys, right? I froze the cooking. I thought to myself, and tell me if this is a bit juvenile, perhaps two things are going on. They're interviewing her to see if Asa was present for any of these alleged crimes, right? And then do you think that since Rodney Harrison, we know him well and how he preserves evidence, they're protecting the case so much that they're letting Asa go on and possibly incriminate herself or do her thing while they're really bulking up potentially a case, especially since DNA is focused in on her beyond her home situation?
Well, she's lawyered up now. So
right.
The odds of her coming in for an interview now are almost nil.
Well, I meant the interviews with these shows, with all these documentaries.
Oh, yeah.
And everything. Yeah.
Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That's open source material. Okay, so you go on and do interviews and you make statements to the press. That's all fair game for trial.
Absolutely. And the fact of what you mentioned of them building a case and letting her go about her business, that is standard in the investigations. If we don't have enough to arrest somebody, we let them go about their business, and then we collect more and more evidence. And that's why somebody like John Ray, and you heard me mention, and we use confidential informants all the time. And CIs sometimes don't like to come and come into a situation like Ray Tierney said publicly. We don't want anybody speaking to anybody but us. And that kind of like scares people to come forward, because it sends a message like, hey, it's either me or nobody else. And that's not what you want to have here. And that's why I think Rodney Harrison, because he's such a seasoned investigator and a great detective, that he was trying to make that situation where it was comfortable for people to come forward. These could be potential victims, as we're hearing now, of Rex Heuermann, rape victims, assault victims. These are sensitive people who are fragile, and if they feel like they're being picked apart or being talked down to, or in an uncomfortable situation, they have to be comfortable with the people who are. And John Ray is that guy. So he's the go between. Listen, we have two other young ladies waiting, and I want to
take care.
One last thing.
I want you to know I love you. And I thank you.
Much love. And you too, Ed. I extend it to you.
Okay, thank you. You too. And who doesn't love an empanada? Okay.
Maybe I'll see you at Homeland Security. I used to work with them and you guys, so maybe I'll bring a tray.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm at the Secret Squirrel location.
To your viewers? What?
Yeah, I'm at the Secret Squirrel location in Brooklyn.
I know where that is. I'll find you. And Ronnie, can we Secret Squirrel empanadas to any of your viewers?
Absolutely. We have one that just came in from Missouri, who's at in New York City for the next 3 days. So
you can give them my contact info, and I also have something I want to offer your viewers. If there's someone out there who wants to be gifted empanadas, I have a company that I do them, and I'll do a small order for the holidays if you select a viewer, and I'll send them out.
Maybe we'll do a little giveaway. So that's okay. Good. Thank you.
Be safe. Take care, all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Sarge, have a good one. Take care. There goes Sarge. All right.
Sarge.
Next up, that was great. That was a really pleasant surprise. Jennifer has been waiting patiently. She sent me a message in the private chat. She's like, I'm here. I'm ready. And then we're going to get to Darlene. So Darlene, just hang tight. She might be in her car. Darlene, hang out. Hang out. I'll be right with you. I promise. Jennifer, how's it going?
It's going good. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, good.
Where are you calling in?
I'm from Jersey, but I live in North Carolina right now. I'm taking care of my mother.
Nice.
But I'm very new to the channel, and I just wanted to give you guys much respect for the honesty and the humility and the no drama, because I think you guys are doing it right. So I didn't call to ask an Asa question. I called to ask you guys what drew you to this line of work.
I'll go first, Ed. Okay. So for me, I started in my police career at 26. So I was a little bit older. Most cops in New York City, they're 20, 21 years old. The age changes over the time, but I started at 26. So I had some life experience, and I was getting ready to get married and had to start a family. So it was about helping people. And I told the story on previous live streams. As a young adult and as a child and a teenager, I used to go and cut the lawns of elderly folks around my dad's house. My parents got divorced when I was young, and I helped everybody in my neighborhood. They used to call me the mayor. So it was something that I think I was born with, to try to help. So I became a police officer to help people. And I quickly realized that you can't help everybody, but you could do the best that you can. And I always treated everybody with the same way I'd want to be treated if I was in that same situation. And it worked well for me over 20 years. Some of the people who I've arrested over my time have actually thanked me. And you don't get that often. Think about that. You don't get people who you put in handcuffs and put in jail come back onto the street, because I patrolled the same streets for 7 years in the New York City public housing police. I was a housing cop, and I'd see those people. They would go to jail and they'd come back out. And I was thanked many times, not just for correcting or putting that person on the right path. But I was thanked because when I put them in custody, I didn't treat them like animals. I treated them like human beings. Same way I would want to be treated in the same situation. So I took a police career to help people, and I continue to do that in my retired life.
Well, with me, after high school, contemplating becoming a priest, and I wanted a family and children. So, that quickly went away after 1 month. I went to architecture school, and then was in architecture, and I wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I was a part of a law enforcement family, 2 generations of my family, starting with my grandfather in 1920. And uncles and other family members, and having grown up in military and law enforcement family and hearing all these stories as kids, I decided that, I had taken the civil service exams for various city employees. And I decided I would take the police department, called me up and said, hey, this is your last chance to take this job. And I said, okay, I took it. And I left architecture, but not really ever leave architecture, but I left working in the firm there and went to become a cop. In fact, I remember one of my friends said, why would you do that? Why would you do that? And then later on in life, he goes, you made the right decision, because now I'm retired and I don't have a pension. I don't have any health care. I don't have anything. And anyhow, but I did it to help people as well. I was always about helping people. But I really found, I was lucky that I had a lieutenant that got transferred into my precinct in Brooklyn, 70 precinct. And his name was Joe Taylor. And he talked to me about crime scene, because that's where he came from. He was a detective there, and he was a sergeant. And he gave me a few books to read, and I fell in love with it. And then I just started going for training after training after training on my own, and made myself an attractive candidate, and I applied and I got in.
And the job and the NYPD was to have you. It was you were a tremendous asset to the department, and what you did, some of the things and the stories that you've told me, Ed, just go above and beyond with what any great detective would do. And so kudos to you. Thank you, Jennifer, for calling in. There's a whole bunch of people. I can't even believe how many people are waiting. So let's
go ahead. Move on to the next person. Thank you guys for all you do.
Now take care of your mother.
Yeah, love and respect to you and Mom, and have a happy, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, guys.
See you soon. All right, there she goes. So let me move on to the next one.
Darlene's up.
Darlene, thank you for being patient. Hi, Darlene.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Where are you calling from?
I am Van Buren, Arkansas.
Okay.
Yeah. And Ed Wallace is the smartest person I've ever met.
Oh, stop.
Man alive.
No, seriously. And I work with surgeons, and they got nothing on you. I just wanted to say that. But so my question is, I understand the transfer of like the hair and all that. They lived in the house, which obviously puts him and her at some point in with the victims. But what would be the chance that her hair could come up on a victim? I mean, what are the chances that it would come up on a victim that she's never had any contact with?
Well, again, she personally never having contact with, given that her husband is the suspect and that she's been in the husband's vehicle. She lives in that house. So if he had, again, there's evidence that he had the victims in his vehicle. There's evidence that he had victims in his house. So that transfer could easily occur there. But the hairs are being found on the adhesive side of duct tape and on a belt. Okay. So again, now if this tape is in the household and he has access to the tape, she has access to the tape, yes, there can be some transfer depending on how he's handling the tape or she's handling the tape to wrap these bodies and so forth. It's a question that needs to be answered though, Darlene. I was a little miffed how, the statement about she was cleared or exonerated, if you will, from the initial 3 indictments or having any involvement in those homicides so quickly because of this alleged not in town at the time. I don't know how I mean, again, I don't know have access to all the case materials, and nor does Ron, but I don't know how they have narrowed down the time frame, maybe cell phone records or whatever the case may be, and where they come up with the actual time of death or date and time of death and location and so forth. But it still needs, to me, it's a question that needs answering.
And that will be strongly challenged by the defense. Defense attorneys are going to pick apart the state's case, and they're going to ask them, how did you make a determination of when these decedents when was their date and time of death, as Ed said? How do you come up with that? So there's a lot of questions that are not answered.
And there could be a statistical analysis studied.
Of course.
Right. To show, what are the odds, three separate victims, 3 hair samples from the wife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Darlene, you have another question?
No, that was it.
All right.
Okay, but thank you for taking my call, and I could sit and listen to Ed Wallace talk 24/7.
Stop, Darlene. You gotta stop.
Seriously.
My wife's about to come in here with a pin and pop my head.
Darlene, let me just say this to you. Ed and I value your subscription, your friendship, your interaction here, and everybody who leaves us comments. And I've seen you many times in the comment section. So it's just so nice to see a face with the name. And I appreciate you being brave, and you're in your car and you hung out and you waited. So Ed and I want to thank you and all the others who come on and question us.
I'm a traveling healthcare worker, so if I ever take a travel job in New York, the first people I want to see is you.
Come and check us out. We'll love to.
Okay.
We'd love to show you around.
All right. Thank you.
Good night. Bye bye now.
Merry Christmas.
Right, so there goes Darlene. Hey, this is a great friend who's returning after all, aka Suman. And I might not have said that right. Suman, she's been on with us. She's been on with us a few different times, and she asks great questions. So let's add her in. Hey.
Hi, DutyRon. Thank you for not forgetting me. You and Ed are my heroes. You know that.
Namaste.
You went on an India trip and everything. So awesome. Mm-hmm. First of all, I just called because I wanted to say sorry about Josh. It was, I know, very heartbreaking for both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had an excellent tribute to him, and he's probably, watching over us in spirit.
Oh yeah.
Amen.
It's giving me technical difficulties with my computer all the time now. So he's sending me signs. But thank you for that. Thank you. It was a very tough loss for this whole community. But myself, I had so much interaction with Josh, and so did Ed. Ed spoke with Josh often when he was in the studio with us before we went live in the beginning. And then once we graduated from the Josh Academy, he would let us go on our own. But he was always in the chat, and he was always in the studio with us, welcoming guests and getting the lighting right and getting everybody centered. And he used to send me messages while I was live. Hey, scoot over a bit. You're not centered. And I'd have to scoot over because he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't stop until I did it. So yeah, I miss Josh tremendously, and he's gonna be missed going forward. What's the question for Asa Ellerup in the case?
I must admit, DutyRon, I was doing other stuff, so I just joined very late, and I decided to call because I saw you had that call on. I guess my question is more generic. Now, with all the technology advancements, you introduce us, and Ed gives us a lot of details as to how much we have on the law enforcement side to make sure, we collect all the evidence and, the MVAC, the, cameras, DNA kind of stuff. Do you think, the trials that they put up, I mean, to me, it almost seems like it's like a sham, to defend somebody who's clearly guilty. There's so much evidence against them. At least, maybe like 30 years ago, we didn't have that many. So there was a benefit of doubt that they may need it to be given because there was no DNA or something concrete. Do you think these trials and all the defense still make sense? Should it be tweaked somehow? Or what do you think? Just in general, like technology advancement and how much more accurate is it for law enforcement to say this is the person?
Well, we've come a long way, and before the advent of DNA or the use of DNA in criminal investigations, there were a lot of people wrongfully convicted, and DNA has helped exonerate them over time. Because again, I said it time and time again that eyewitness testimony is not the best form of testimony. Eyewitness testimony is flawed. Okay, eyewitnesses don't always get it right. Unlike that gentleman that we saw the other day up in Niagara, he had every little nuance of what happened there down to a T, and that's very rare. But it was fresh in his mind. He was there at the time of the incident with the car crash and explosion. So the more technology we use, the better the investigation gets. And then you also have this thing, it's called the CSI effect, from all these television shows, the CSI shows, the forensic files, all these different things. Now, if you don't have this evidence that the jury saw on television and they expect in the trial, and you don't have this evidence, it can tend to hurt the case. Even though the case may be solid on circumstantial evidence, but not necessarily forensic evidence. If you don't have all this forensic evidence that they're used to seeing from these television shows, there have been a lot of people that were clearly guilty and now getting off.
Yeah.
So it's a double-edged sword.
I agree. So it's a tough balance, like you said, with the revelations of DNA and so forth. You have the DNA project, where the Innocence Project. I mean, so they're using DNA to take people who are wrongfully convicted and getting them freed from jail because they were not the ones that committed these crimes. And I think it's important that we go and advance with technology. Look at what Ortham Labs is doing down in Texas. They're solving 20, 30-year-old cases on the technology that they're using. And if that technology wasn't in effect, these victims would never get justice and their families. So it's a good one. It's a good question, and I appreciate you asking it. We have another two people, and I want to get to them and then close out. But I love that you came on, and I love you're comfortable to come up with us. You're always welcome. Whenever I do this, if you're there, come on up, and we love to see you and talk to you.
Thank you so much, DutyRon and Ed, and happy holiday season. Merry Christmas and happy
Merry
New Year to
Christmas.
you and family.
Okay, you too.
I'll be listening when watching with every other fan. All right, thank you.
All our best.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Do we have? Okay, Monique.
Hey Mo, you there?
We're looking at her ceiling now. Give us the thumbs up when you're ready, Mo. All right, there she is, and your mic is muted, just so you know. All right, here she is. Thank you for being
Hey
patient.
guys,
Where are you watching from?
Reno, Nevada.
Nevada.
Okay, been there, done that.
I'm actually sneaking over here to the quiet area at work so I can ask. I'm really excited about this new information because, I knew it. Didn't we know this? We knew it. We absolutely knew that there was something there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this new information is not only exciting, but it also brings us to the truth. We want to get to the truth. What really happened? What was Asa Ellerup's involvement? In the beginning, if you remember, Monique, we and everyone in the chat, we got from Robert Macedonia that she was shocked, that she had no clue any of this was going on. Those vile internet searches were shocking and disgusting to her, but she never sent any empathy towards the victims and their families. She went on to the whole thing of me. Now, listen, I'm not one to ever go out and poo-poo someone who's fighting illness. She is fighting breast cancer, and she's going through that. I'm sympathetic, and I feel for anybody who has to fight cancer. My co-host here fought it. I fought it. It's a battle that you don't want to go through. But you start trying to make money and monetize off of people who were, as I said before, raped, tortured, dismembered, beaten, and all of the above.
that is a new level of vile in my book. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what anybody's, how people feel differently about this thing. But this is my feelings, and I'm not going to, come at anybody else if they say, how dare you, or I support God. Have at it. If you want to support her and you want to, send money to her on me, that's up to you. I'm never going to be the one to say, oh, you're terrible for doing that. But you're not going to catch me, and you're not going to catch Ed Wallace supporting this kind of nonsense.
None of me.
But yeah.
So my questions are still, they were actually about the hair, additionally about the hairs. So if you're the investigator or, working on the case and you find, I don't know if we could say that type of hair on the victims, would it be more suspicious? Can you tell the difference between the two if you're a forensic investigator?
Yeah, microscopic analysis can tell the difference between pubic hair and head hair and other parts of the body. Each hair has their unique characteristics, and yeah, you can tell that definitely.
Even nose hair, it's with the nose hair.
Absolutely, because besides that, there are other things that are on the hairs that could.
It's you. Okay, so then that would leads me to my next question, which would be, okay, so if you're investigating and you're finding on all three victims, not head hair, but different hair, are you going to be much more suspicious?
Armpit hair?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially you're looking at potential sexual assault crimes and so forth. Once you start seeing those types of things,
so
if her hair was there,
if this big monster was on top of these victims, having again, and this is these sensitive topics and discussions, but this big monster was on top of these victims, having sex with them, his chest hairs are going to come off on them. You could be talking about any type of body hair, not just pubic hair from the head. So yeah, and that's what we're looking at. I think we cleared the grid, but we're on an hour and 30 minutes. I don't like to go over that amount because then people.
I know this is epic.
Yeah. So Mo, thank you for calling in and being patient and waiting. Your questions, as all the questions from all of our guests that come up and people who leave in the comment section. If you guys know, Ed and I, we answer the comments in the comment section. A lot of creators don't have either the time or just the want to do that, but we feel it's so important and respectful. If you ask a good quality question or a question that's concerning to you, I'll sometimes answer the questions if I miss them a month later, but I answer them out and I take the time to do that. And I thank everyone for engaging with us, whether it's in the live chat or in the comments down below. It's greatly appreciated. All right.
It's you guys who make us feel comfortable. So thank you so much for always making us feel like family. And it's like my uncles, I got my uncle over there on the East Coast, and I always appreciate you guys. So have a good night.
The community, you have a good night too. The community is the heartbeat of this community, and we appreciate them. So thank you.
Amen. Good night, guys.
Have a good one.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. She was still in the studio, so she heard it. Trina Young popped in. She's like, I'm not letting them get away without me asking the question. Trina, are you ready?
Trina.
Are
you ready, Trina? Thumbs up.
She's walking around.
All right, she gave us the thumb.
You saw it? Okay.
Yeah.
Hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, I had to go in the bathroom because I had the TV on in the other room. I couldn't find the remote.
Okay.
This whole case has got me baffled. Let me say this, and I normally wouldn't go public with this, but this case is personal to me. And the reason I say that is when I was a young teenager, I was trafficked onto the street. That could have been me laying out there in Gilgo. And I've been emailing John Ray. I gave him some private information. DutyRon, I emailed you about some of that information on Katrina Young.
Yes,
right, that's me.
Any emails that we get, we always forward if they're, if it's pertaining to, like you said, to John Ray and some of the
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm the one that gave him the information, the correct address on Lot East. It wasn't on West 27th. It was on East 27th, next door. If you were, I don't know if you were a cop back then in the 80s.
Yes.
There was a hotel on the corner called the Madison Hotel. 27th and Madison. It was a known prostitution hotel.
Yes.
A lot of the girls from there used to go into the locked-up piece with the police in order to stay out of jail.
Now, have you had conversations with John Ray? Have you?
Yeah, I've been emailing him on a regular basis. Yes.
Right. So it's important that you keep those conversations with you and him instead of having it on the internet. And that's why I got I don't want
Okay, but I have a question, and I need to ask this. The officer that was involved, that went out to Long Island with Karen Vagata and his swinger partner, if there's any proof to this, can he go to prison?
Well, there could be trafficking charges if he brought her
That's
out there.
what I thought it would be.
Yes, there could be.
Right, but we don't. Again, we're not attorneys, so we don't know what the statute of limitations would be, and there's a lot of different factors, Trina, to this thing. So, Trina, we say this that they Rodney Harrison said in that press conference with John Ray that, and they touched on this, right? But after that press conference, he was asked if that guy was questioned or brought in and questioned, and I believe that he said yes.
Yeah, I saw that in TV, but can he go to jail if it's proven that he was there that day that Karen Vagata went missing? Why isn't he at least arrested? I mean, he's an accessory.
They would have to have evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he did commit a crime therein. And if they don't have that, the DA is not going to sign off on an arrest. That's 13, 14 years old.
Right. And there's a statutes of limitations that, from the time that the crime was committed to now, in a lot of the sex crimes cases, in trafficking and so forth, there is a statutes of limitations. So it might be beyond law enforcement's capability to arrest and prosecute.
Right. For those type of charges.
Wow.
Now, if it was a murder, if he was involved in a murder, or they had proof that he was involved in a murder, now you're talking a whole different ballgame.
If he knowingly left her out there, he brought her out there from jail, from what I'm to understand. He knowingly left her there, which eventually obviously led to her death.
Right. So, I mean, again, this is something that task force has to look at and has to validate. And if they do find that to be truthful, and that is the case, there could be some kind of accessory charges.
That's what accessory after the fact, right?
Right. It could be, but that's on them. That's on their law enforcement out in the task force and the district attorney out there.
Yeah, well, I'm in agreement with John Ray on one thing. Asa Ellerup is not innocent. I don't believe that, because if Karen Vagata was put in that house with Asa in that house, and that cop and the swinger left her there, Asa had to know what happened.
I mean,
it just doesn't make sense to me.
Trina, I agree with you, but you need to have more than that, and they need to.
I know.
You know what I mean? So we all feel the same way. But at the end of the day, to get it into a court of law and have a successful prosecution, you need to have more than what we feel happened. We need concrete proof. You need to, and it's a very complex thing. It's not as easy as one would think. And it's not just the investigators, it's the DA has to be on board with the evidence that's presented to them by the detectives. So you need to build the case, have substantial evidence in it, within that case, and then you need to present it, and then they got to give you the okay. These things don't just happen because
I know.
Yeah. So
I'm just angry because I had a friend of mine that was murdered on the streets years ago, not from Gilgo though. It's a whole different case.
Right.
I don't know if you remember the old Belmore Hotel.
I do not, but Ed,
you do, right, Ed?
Yes.
Then you remember the girl that was murdered?
Yes.
With her own pantyhose? That was my best friend.
Yeah, I unfortunately I had a few of these cases in some of these hotels, as they call them.
Yeah, the 13th precinct used to cover that area.
Yes, that's right. 13th and 10th precinct. There was several.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen. There's a lot over there.
I was born in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah,
the 80s, the late 80s, and when I became,
I was out there in the early to mid 80s, and then I had a baby, and I said, God, I'm out of here. I had a friend that gave me a job legitimately and helped me get off the street.
Trina,
good for you. Good for you. God bless.
Yeah, we're so glad you made it out and you're alive.
I want to thank all of you for everything that you're trying to do on this case. And thank you, DutyRon, for speaking up for John Ray. I don't like when people make fun of him. As far as I'm concerned, he's been busting his butt for 13 years. If he wants to go out there dressed butt naked, I could care less. He's doing the job that they should have done a long time ago.
he's jumping up and down and advocating for the
I
families.
wish I could go to that symposium. I really do, but I live in Scranton now and I can't afford it. You know, I'm on disability. I'm 65, so
Okay.
I'm just going to sit back and watch it.
I'm catching up to you. I'll be 60 this year. So
All right. Well, thank you for
I
joining
got
us.
more hair than you. What happened to your hair? Did you stick your finger in a light socket?
Oh,
a couple of times.
All right.
I'm sorry, I had to get you with that one.
Okay, I like it. I can take it. I got a thick skin. I'll talk to you
Yeah,
soon.
you and me both. God bless all of you. Be safe out there. Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Yeah. Now. All right, Ed. That was a marathon that we just did. Wow. It was great to do this extended version of this Forensic Friday, because this 30 minutes, the extra 30 we went over, was great to have this user engagement. And I think I challenged everybody by calling them chickens. Don't take offense to it, folks. I was just saying it in a loving way to try to get people to come on, and it worked. Thank you, Detective DutyRon. So again, we want to close the show by saying we're going to follow this case. We always send prayers, strength, and positive vibes to victims, families, and the victims. So, we keep them at the forefront in all of these conversations that we have, even though some of them are pretty rough. But we're going to follow this. We're going to follow other cases. Go over to our social media, all one word, DutyRon. You can find me and Ed Wallace on every social media platform. I have a LinkedIn, a link tree in the description. You can click on that link tree if you want, and it'll give you ways to get in touch with us, including our website and everything. So again, thank you to the new subscribers. Thank you to the old subscribers. Thank you to everyone in between, the replay viewers, the mod squad, and all of the wonderful people who come in and ask these questions. Ed, I know you got something to say.
Well, I want to thank everybody for their participation tonight. I want to say, be safe, be prepared, and watch your six.
Amen to that. And I want to dedicate this and all of our shows to our good friend and producer, Josh Hernandez. May he continue to rest in peace. And may his family find peace in his passing. We'll see you guys soon. Love and respect from Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. Stand by for a message from the cop team. Ooh. Oh, wait a minute. We missed that one. Jason.
Yes. We have to get it because he said, "Oh, you guys going to read it?" Okay. Thank you, Jason, for the super chat. 1999. Law enforcement says that they know that she was not in the area when these happened. That implies they know exactly when all of these three happened down to a very specific time. But how did they know all of this at the time of Rex arrest?
We covered this a little bit. We talked a little bit.
Yeah. A lot of it had to do with the cell phone data.
Yeah.
And tracking, so forth. But again, we don't know all the specifics of, what time frame they actually discovered.
And now that you put me in check with these chats, and thank you, Jason, for the generous super chat. And we did cover it, but thank you, Ed, for highlighting that while I was ready to put the cop team on. But Dylan Beach also gifted 5 memberships. Nina became a member, and Cheryl sent us a super chat, $6.99. Thank you, Cheryl F. Joey Brooklyn is a member for 32 freaking months. He says, thank you both for your dedicated service. And there's Jason's. Estella sent in Czar fundage. Ooh, 140 on the super sticker. Thank you for that. Amber, for being a member for a whole year. Thank you for being here. Hello, DutyRon and Ed, mods and chat. And that covers it all. So thank you, everybody. Stand by for an important message from our pets, the ones that give us unconditional love. Kara, Oscar, and Popeye. Let's let it go. Where is it? There it is. Peace, guys. Good night.